They didn't scream, they didn't cheat, but their silence spoke volumes. What if betrayal isn't what they did, but what they stopped doing? You kept forgiving, kept explaining, kept shrinking. Until one day, you realized they were never going to honor your boundaries. Some betrayals don't leave bruises, they leave emptiness. Discover how to protect your peace from people who keep crossing your quiet lines. There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't make noise. It doesn't arrive with shouting matches, scandals, or dramatic exits. No, this kind of betrayal is quiet, subtle, and slow. It comes from someone you once handed your heart to. Someone you welcomed into your inner circle. Someone you trusted with your time, your energy, your loyalty, only to find that when life became heavy, when the skies turned dark and the fire of hardship rose, they chose convenience over commitment, and they disappeared. They were all in when the blessings were flowing and laughter filled the room. They cheered the loudest when things were easy, when you didn't need them. But the moment struggle showed up, when your soul needed support, when your strength was failing, they slipped away without a word. That's not just leaving, that's betrayal. You see, loyalty doesn't reveal itself during the party, it shows up in the pain. It's not measured by who laughs with you when life is beautiful. It's measured by who kneels beside you when everything is broken. Loyalty is quiet. It proves itself in chaos, in suffering, and in silence. It's not about who's present when it's convenient, but who stays when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and uncertain. If someone walked out on you when your heart was barely hanging on, when your soul was gasping for connection, and all you needed was someone to say, "I'm here," they didn't just abandon your presence. They betrayed your worth, because love is never proven in the good times. It's proven in the valley. Love is not a mood. It's not a reaction, it's a choice. And if they chose to quit when the heat turned up, then let this truth settle in your heart. They never truly loved you at all. Let me say something honest. People will tell you they care. They will speak loyalty with their lips. But the fire, it always reveals the truth. Most people, after being hurt like this, try to justify it. They'll say, maybe they had too much going on, or maybe I expected too much from them, or maybe they didn't know how to handle my pain. But I'm here to speak truth over your confusion. Real love doesn't leave. Real loyalty doesn't flinch when life gets hard. If they walked away while you were bleeding, they weren't your partner, they were a passerby wearing a temporary label. And don't you dare apologize for needing someone. That's not being needy. That's being human, that's covenant, that's the very foundation of relationship. You're not asking for too much when you expect someone to stay when it's hard. You're asking for what God intended love to look like. If someone chose the easier path instead of walking with you through your darkest valley, that person doesn't belong near your soul. That's not someone to cling to, that's someone to let go. Because betrayal wrapped in abandonment hurts just as deeply as betrayal shouted through lies. The only difference is it bleeds in silence, and the most painful part? Sometimes betrayal doesn't come from someone leaving the house. Sometimes they stay, they sleep beside you. They smile in photos, but their heart has already left. They stopped seeing you, they stopped praying with you. They stopped showing up in the ways that mattered. They became a ghost with skin, and that too is betrayal. Because someone showing up halfway is often more damaging than not showing up at all. It leaves you hollow, confused, holding tightly to someone who's already slipped away in spirit. That kind of presence feels like absence wrapped in false hope. And if you're not careful, you'll keep pouring into someone who has already emotionally left the room. That's why you must learn to protect your soul from people who treat commitment like a convenience store, something they visit when it suits them, something they abandon when it requires real cost. These are the people who stick around when skies are clear and praise is loud, but disappear at the very first rumble of thunder. But storms will come. That's not a threat, it's a guarantee. That's life. And if someone isn't willing to walk with you through the storm, to hold your hand when the winds rise and the ground shakes, then they don't deserve to be dancing in the sunshine of your breakthrough. Don't let the people who were absent in your battle pull up a chair at your table in victory. You owe no space in your joy to those who abandoned you in your pain. If someone couldn't carry your brokenness, they don't qualify to celebrate your healing. If they didn't love you when you were in the valley, they haven't earned the right to stand beside you on the mountaintop. Forgiveness is a sacred exchange between you and God. Yes, release the bitterness. Yes, lay down the grudge, but don't forget what the storm revealed. Don't forget who stepped away when you needed them the most. Some people were never meant to stay. They were only meant to reveal the truth. They were tests meant to expose, not to endure, and once a test is complete, you don't retake it. You don't plead for it to come back. You learn, you rise. And you thank God for showing you what you needed to see. Because loyalty isn't measured in the calm, it's proven in the chaos. It's not about who stays for the celebration, it's about who shows up for the suffering. And once someone betrays your trust by choosing what's easy over what's right, by walking out when they were meant to step closer, that's not someone you let back into the protected places of your heart. That's a betrayal that cuts deep. One you don't erase, one you don't excuse. There's something sacred about being vulnerable. When you let someone into the rawest places of your soul, when you open the door to your real self, not the curated version, not the one the crowd claps for, you're offering something holy. That's not light, that's not casual, that's the deepest kind of trust. And when someone takes what you gave in love and uses it as a weapon, that's not just hurt, that's a violation. Betrayal rarely comes from enemies, it comes from those you let in close. The ones you confided in at 2 a.m., the ones who saw your tears. The ones who said, "You're safe with me," and then, somewhere along the way, they changed. Their heart shifted, their words turned sharp. And what you shared in the dark became their weapon in the light. That's not just a painful moment, that's a betrayal of your very soul. If anyone has ever taken your pain and transformed it into gossip, if they've thrown your trauma back at you in anger, if they've used your deepest wounds as ammunition in a fight, hear me clearly, that was not just poor judgment. That was betrayal of your humanity, that was a conscious choice. And no apology, no excuse, no "I didn't mean it like that" can undo the violence they committed with what you trusted them to hold. Some people will never fully understand the weight of what you carry. They'll never realize how much courage it took for you to speak those words, for you to open up that buried chapter of your life. They won't see the silent battles behind your confession, the trembling in your voice, or the tears you wiped away before you dared to trust again. And when they mishandle that sacred part of you, it's not just careless, it's cruel. It's proof that they were never meant to hold that part of you to begin with. Because when you choose to be vulnerable with someone, you're not asking them to fix your wounds. You're not demanding that they be flawless or all-knowing. All you're asking for is gentleness, a soft place to land, a heart that listens without judgment. And when they respond with criticism, with manipulation, with exposure, they are not showing you what's wrong with you. They're revealing what's deeply broken inside of them. There are people who smile in your presence, nod as you speak, and act like they care while secretly studying your wounds. Not to help heal them, but to measure how deep they are. So that later, when they're upset or triggered or bored, they'll know exactly where to strike. That's not an exaggeration, that's real. And it's why some of the most excruciating pain we'll ever endure doesn't come from strangers. It comes from those we once handed the key to our soul. And you have every right to protect your peace. You have every right to draw a line that keeps that kind of hurt from ever reaching you again. Now hear me clearly, I'm not saying live with bitterness. I'm not saying become hard-hearted or vengeful. What I am saying is, do not give another chance to someone who turned your deepest vulnerability into a weapon. Because real love does not humiliate, real trust doesn't retaliate. And true loyalty never turns your private pain into public ammunition. Betrayal like that hits different. It slices into your identity. It shakes the foundation of what love is supposed to be. And that's why there comes a time in your life when you must pause and ask a powerful question. Who has access to my soul? Not everyone deserves that kind of closeness. Not everyone should be handed the map to your heart. Just because someone says, "I'm sorry," doesn't mean they're safe. Apologies without changed behavior, that's not repentance. That's manipulation just dressed in better timing. Some betrayals don't require second chances, they require boundaries, firm ones. You've grown too much to keep shrinking for people who only want pieces of you. You've cried in silence too many nights to explain yourself to someone who only wants gossip, not genuine connection. So don't open the door again. Don't give them the privilege of hearing your whispers if they once turned them into blades. That's not friendship, that's not love. That's betrayal disguised in familiarity, and it echoes longer than any spoken insult. You're not heartless, you're not bitter. You're just wiser now. You've learned that trust is sacred, and a heart is not a toy. And when someone takes that heart from your trembling hands and throws it on the floor, that's a betrayal you never forget. And it's not one you ever have to forgive. Because some betrayals don't arrive with noise. They don't show up with slammed doors or shouted arguments. They creep in quietly, they unfold over time. When someone you love slowly stops showing up for you, not physically, but emotionally. They sit across the table, they sleep beside you. But their soul, it left long ago. The warmth you once felt, the presence that used to be constant, the heart that used to reach for yours, it's gone. And somehow, the silence left behind by that emotional absence can be louder than any argument ever spoken. When someone decides to shut down inside a relationship, not physically walk away, but emotionally go numb when they detach from your needs, your joys, your pain, and your very presence, that too is betrayal. Just because their feet never left the room doesn't mean their heart didn't walk out long ago. Because love, real love, isn't just about being in the same space. Love is attentiveness, it's emotional connection. It's being aware, engaged, present in both body and spirit. And when someone chooses to ignore your tears, to tune out your voice, to become indifferent to your emotional world, they're not truly staying. They're slowly walking away, and that kind of gradual abandonment is a wound that bleeds in silence. Some of the loneliest people on this earth go to sleep beside someone every single night. And that ache runs deep, not because of what is, but because of what used to be. You remember when they used to ask you how you were and truly waited for the answer. You remember when their eyes saw you, really saw you, not just out of duty, but out of desire. You remember when they reached for your hand, not from habit, but from hunger for closeness. And now they scroll, they nod, they grunt. They pass by like you're part of the background furniture, a home they no longer fully live in. And the hardest part, it makes you question yourself. You start wondering, what did I do wrong? Why don't they speak to me anymore? Why does it feel like I've disappeared? Let me say this clearly to your soul. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much. Emotional intimacy is not an extra, it's essential. It's the heartbeat of love. When someone chooses to wall themselves off instead of build bridges, when they begin to treat your existence as background noise rather than sacred presence, they're not just neglecting you, they're betraying the core of what love was meant to be. Because presence without participation is simply abandonment with a quieter voice. And the truth is, you cannot build a future with someone who refuses to fully exist in your present. Love isn't just what's visible. It's carried in the invisible gestures, in the way someone listens, the way they care, the way they try. Relationships are formed in the unseen efforts, the quiet empathy, the intentional affection, the willingness to show up. And when those pieces die, what's left is not love, it's a hollow routine. It's performance without passion, a shell that echoes with everything you've lost. Understand this, emotional abandonment is not somehow less serious than physical departure. In some ways, it cuts even deeper, because when someone physically leaves, the loss is clear. But when they stay and stop being there, it creates a confusion that wears your soul down over time. You begin to shrink without realizing it. You go quiet, not out of peace but exhaustion. You stop asking for what you need because all you're met with is indifference. And slowly, painfully, You begin to lose pieces of yourself just to maintain the illusion of harmony. But love that requires your silence is not love. Love that forces you to hide your voice so someone else can stay comfortable is not love. When someone betrays you by ignoring your emotional needs, by showing up in body but not in heart, by turning away when you're breaking inside, that is not a small thing. That is a deep fracture, and no amount of routine, no matter how long you've been together, no shared memories can undo the slow erosion caused by that kind of emotional neglect. You deserve a love that doesn't just notice you, you deserve presence that sees you deeply and clearly. You deserve the kind of love that listens before you even speak, that leans in when your silence says more than your words ever could. You deserve someone who doesn't just sit beside you in the room, but chooses to sit with you heart to heart, soul to soul. Someone who looks into your eyes and whispers with certainty, "I'm still here, I still care. I still choose you, even in this," because that's what true commitment looks like. That's what sacred covenant feels like in real time. So don't settle. Don't accept proximity without presence. Don't tell yourself, "At least they're here," when their heart checked out months ago. Don't stay just because you fear being alone, because the loneliest place to be is next to someone who no longer sees you. And never ever blame yourself for their refusal to engage. Love takes effort, love demands investment. Real love leans in, so when someone chooses to lean away, when they let the distance grow, when they continue to show up physically but leave you starving emotionally, that's not love. That's betrayal, and it's the kind of betrayal that no amount of apologies can cover up. The truth is, not every betrayal is meant to be repaired. We've been taught that forgiveness means reunion, that forgiving someone should automatically open the door to reconciliation, that grace always means giving someone another chance. But hear this clearly, there are betrayals so deep, so personal, that forgiveness doesn't require restoration. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is forgive someone and walk away, even if they never understand the full weight of what they did to you. I know that's not an easy truth, especially for people like you, people who believe in second chances, in redemption, in giving grace because God has given grace to you. But there are moments, holy moments, when the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to acknowledge that not all relationships are meant to be restored. Not everyone deserves to be brought back in. Not everyone should be allowed to sit at your table just because they ask. Some wounds run so deep that a second chance only reopens what's trying to heal. Forgiveness is not about saying the betrayal was okay. It's not about pretending the pain didn't matter. It's about freeing yourself from carrying the bitterness, the resentment, the heaviness that tries to take root in your spirit. But that freedom doesn't require you to let them back in. You can forgive fully and still choose to keep your distance. You can release the weight of anger without handing the key to your heart back to the person who broke it. Sometimes protecting your peace means guarding your space so fiercely that even those who claim to be sorry are kept at arm's length, because their presence, no matter how soft their voice sounds now, is still a threat to your healing. Forgiveness isn't a green light for re-entry. It's a green light for you to move forward, to make space for relationships built on truth, on gentleness, on honor. And if someone shattered your trust so deeply that it fractured your peace and wounded your soul, you do not owe them another opportunity. You don't owe them a comeback story. You don't owe them your vulnerability again. Some people will never change, no matter how much you pray, hope, or wait. Some people will never see what they did. They'll never recognize the weight of their words, the harm their actions caused, or the wreckage they left behind in your heart. And here's the hardest truth. It's not your mission to make them see it. It's not your burden to carry the hope that they'll finally come around. That's not your job. Your job is to recognize your worth and protect it fiercely. When betrayal steals from you, whether it's your trust, your heart, your peace, or your sense of identity, you have every right to set boundaries that defend what's left. You have the right to say, with clarity and strength, "I forgive you, but I'm not letting you back in." That's not bitterness speaking. That's wisdom. That's the voice of someone who has walked through fire and refuses to walk through it again just to keep someone else warm. It means you understand that your future is more precious than trying to fix a broken past. That not everything or everyone is meant to come with you into your healing. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door gently ... and never reopen it. Because if you let someone who betrayed you re-enter your life without any boundaries, you're risking everything they already broke and giving them the chance to break it again. And you've got to ask yourself, how many more cracks does your heart need before you realize some people simply aren't capable of loving you the way you deserve? This isn't about punishing them, it's about protecting you. It's about honoring your healing, not theirs. It's about recognizing that just because they haven't learned their lesson doesn't mean you need to keep repeating the same painful chapter. And listen, this doesn't mean you're bitter. It doesn't mean you're holding on to hatred. It means you've finally learned what it looks like to protect your peace. You've grown enough to value your healing over temporary comfort. And you've realized that real, deep, soul-level healing doesn't always require a reunion with the one who broke you. Sometimes the truest form of healing comes from release. From moving forward, from declaring with resolve, this chapter is finished. I won't keep defining my life by this pain. It's easy to confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. But those are two very different things. Forgiveness is your path to freedom. It's about cutting the cord that keeps you tethered to what happened. It's the decision to stop letting what they did live rent-free in your heart. But reconciliation, that's another story. That takes two people. That takes effort and responsibility on both sides. And sometimes reconciliation isn't possible. Not because you're stubborn and not because you haven't forgiven, but because they haven't changed. Because they haven't taken a single step toward ownership. And you can't force someone to see what they refuse to face. You can't drag someone into growth they won't choose for themselves. But you can choose to guard your heart. You can choose to honor your healing. You can choose to walk away from anything or anyone that no longer serves your peace, your joy, or your restoration. So forgive, absolutely, but remember this. Forgiveness is not an invitation, it's a release. Choosing to forgive is choosing to move forward without them, with peace in your heart and strength in your soul. But there's one final kind of betrayal we need to talk about today. It's not the betrayal of trust in the traditional sense. It's not loud, it's not explosive, it doesn't shatter you in an instant. No, this betrayal is far more subtle, far more insidious. It's the betrayal of your boundaries. And the hardest part, you often don't realize it's happening, at least, not at first. Because it doesn't show up as a shouting match or an obvious betrayal. It creeps in slowly, quietly, almost gently. Until one day, you look around and realize that someone you care about has been stepping over your boundaries for far too long. And that betrayal, that repeated erosion of your limits, it is just as destructive, if not more, than any other kind. Boundaries are not walls. They're not built to push people away. Boundaries are honest expressions of love and self-respect. They are how we protect our peace, guard our dignity, and preserve our sense of self. Boundaries define what is acceptable and what is not. They create safety. They build clarity. And when someone repeatedly disregards those boundaries, whether through subtle disrespect, manipulation, control, or just selfishness, they are violating the trust you extended to them. There are so many of you listening right now who have let others cross lines that were never meant to be crossed. You've let people into your space, your time, and your heart even when something inside you whispered, "This doesn't feel right," and with every moment your boundary was ignored, a part of you began to dim. You felt smaller, less seen, less worthy. And you told yourself it was fine, that they didn't mean to, that you could handle it, but inside, it chipped away at you slowly, painfully. And that's the thing, each time a boundary is crossed, it leaves a deeper wound than the one before. Some of you have been so afraid of confrontation, so scared of disappointing someone or losing a relationship, that you let your boundaries dissolve. You minimized your own needs, you silenced your own voice. And in doing so, you taught someone how to treat you not with care, but with disregard. Here's the truth many of us don't want to face. When you repeatedly allow someone to step over your boundaries, when you don't stand firm in what you need and what you deserve, what you're actually doing is teaching them how to treat you. You're showing them that your peace is negotiable, that your time can be disrespected, that your soul can be discounted, and over time, you start believing it too. And yes, I know some of you are still trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. You're saying, but they didn't mean it, or they don't know how much it's hurting me. But let me speak clearly into that space. People know what they're doing when they consistently ignore your boundaries. Maybe not always with malicious intent, but they know. They know because you've already expressed your limits. Maybe with your words, maybe with your silence, maybe with your tears, and yet they keep crossing the line. Because they've learned that they can. They know you'll eventually fold. They've learned that you'll back down, that you'll apologize for standing up for yourself, that you'll silently carry their weight just to keep the peace. And if you keep allowing it, they will keep taking. But you need to let this truth settle deep in your spirit. You do not owe anyone an apology for having boundaries. You don't have to explain why you're choosing peace. You're under no obligation to keep saying yes to people who refuse to honor your no. You don't have to keep pouring into people who never refill you. And you certainly don't have to keep opening the door to those who've shown time and time again that they will trample your kindness. The truth is, you can't love others well until you love yourself enough to protect your well-being. You can't be your best self if you're constantly being drained, disrespected, or emotionally manipulated. You can't live a life of freedom, fullness, and purpose while living in fear of saying no. Some people may claim to love you, but that love doesn't always come with respect. And when someone continues to push past your boundaries when they take and take without giving, then you have to make the call. You have to decide, is your inner peace more important than their temporary approval? Is your mental clarity more valuable than their momentary comfort? Is your heart worth more than someone else's convenience? And once you've made that decision, stand firm. Boundaries don't make you cold, they don't make you unkind. They don't make you selfish, they make you whole. They make you someone who knows their worth and refuses to negotiate it. They make you someone who says, I will no longer let people take more than they give. They make you someone who understands that your peace is holy, your time is limited, and your heart is sacred ground, not a doormat. You are not an afterthought, you are not someone's backup plan. You are not here to absorb someone else's rage, neglect, or irresponsibility. If a person repeatedly ignores your boundaries, if they prioritize their comfort over your safety, then it's time to stop waiting for them to care and start caring for yourself. Because real love respects boundaries, true respect acknowledges limits. And no one who truly loves you will ever make you feel like protecting your heart is a crime. No one who truly respects you will casually step over your clearly drawn lines. So set your boundaries boldly, guard your peace fiercely. And understand this, you never have to defend your worth to anyone. The only person who needs to recognize your value is you. And the moment you start living like you matter, like your time, energy, emotions, and dreams are sacred, the right people will see it too. The ones who don't, let them go. Let them walk out the door without regret. Because where you're going, there's no room for people who treat your boundaries like suggestions. This is your reminder, you are worth protecting. And the moment you believe that fully, your life will begin to shift. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone deserves return trips. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, no more, and mean it. Not in anger, but in alignment. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable is the moment you start walking in your true power.